I did an interview. So there were two things that I have to say I regret saying and that I have to take back. And I said that the extreme left has suppressed the art of comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I did say that.
Yeah.
That's not true. It's not true.
No?
No.
So Jerry Seinfeld has retracted his statement about how the far left has ruined comedy. He made that comment before in the past, and this last week he basically said that he regrets making this statement. And in this video, we're going to have a look at Matt Walsh breaking down Jerry Seinfeld, and Matt Walsh isn't having it, and neither am I. And I want to tell you a little backstory about Jerry Seinfeld, something that I personally experienced at a comedy show probably 15 years ago when Jerry Seinfeld was doing a comedy tour, and I actually went and saw him in person. I'm a big fan of his show Seinfeld, and when I found out he was coming to my town that I used to live in, I couldn't wait to go see him, right? Incidentally, this was at the time of a presidential election where two people were campaigning. I believe it was John McCain and Barack Obama. So that must have been, 2012? Something like that. Anyways, he finished his set a little bit early, and he did a question and answers from people in the crowd, which I thought was cool. And one of the people asked him, "Who are you voting for?" And Jerry Seinfeld at the time took the stance, and I believe he's always maintained this stance, that his answer was, no. You know, something to the effect of this, at least. It was, no. You vote for whoever you want. I'm not going to be involved, and I'm not going to take a political party's side, which I really respected, because if he would have said the wrong person, I would have lost respect for him, frankly, right? And so he took the safe route, but I thought it was the smart route, and I respected it because, you know, a lot of these celebrities like to use their celebrity clout to try to get one person to win over the other, and he basically opted out of that scenario. So I had a lot of respect for him. And then within the recent past, he has actually come out and he blamed the far left for ruining comedy. And, you know, that reminded me of a lot of the things that George Carlin has said in the past. And here, let me just play this video for you real quick.
Nothing really affects comedy. People always need it. They need it so badly, and they don't get it. It used to be you would go home at the end of the day. Most people would go, oh, Cheers is on. Oh, MASH is on. Oh, Mary Tyler Moore is on. All in the Family's on. You just expected there'll be some funny stuff we can watch on TV tonight. Well, guess what? Where is it? This is the result of the extreme left and PC crap and people worrying so much about offending other people. Mm-hmm. When you write a script and it goes into 4 or 5 different hands, committees, groups, here's our thought about this joke, well, that's the end of your comedy. They move the gates, like in skiing. Yeah. Culture, the gates are moving. Your job is to be agile and clever enough that wherever they put the gates, I'm going to make the gate.
Which is another comment from Jerry Seinfeld that I completely respect and I actually agree with. Having a joke run through multiple committees is completely absurd. Comedy was always the one thing that was kind of obscure from society. There was no limits and you could go ahead and make fun of everybody. But now it's got filters, right? It's got committees. It's got DEI committees in HR looking at this joke and making sure that it's okay that you say it, because we don't want your image to be off base, right? Which, like I said, comedy used to be unfiltered. It used to be raw, and I loved it. I'm a kid. I grew up watching Russell Simmons' Def Comedy Jam, for example. I've seen pretty much every episode, it seems like. So, I mean, I watched it for years and years and years. Big fan of comedians. I've gone and seen a lot of comedians in the local places and stuff like that. I haven't for a while, but it was a big part of my early marriage. It was a way that me and my wife used to use date night, right? Which is something that I recommend that every married couple maintain. But recently, he's gone back on this statement, and it really disappoints me, and it sucks because, you know, I appreciated his original stance, and what he just said there is how he truly feels. But now, after years, or I'm not sure exactly when he made this statement. I feel like it's been like a year or two, but maybe it's been longer. You can help me out with that in the comments if you don't mind. But I feel like in the interim, and maybe in his age, he's just been wore down, beat down by these committees to the point where he has retracted that statement. And so let's listen to what Matt Walsh has to say about it.
For our daily cancellation today, we must cancel Jerry Seinfeld. It's a bit of a sad moment for me. I've always liked Jerry Seinfeld. His show was a touch overrated, but still one of the greatest television comedies of all time, no doubt about that. He hasn't created a solid piece of entertainment, whether a film or a TV show, since Seinfeld went off the air 25 years ago, despite multiple attempts. But even so, he is undeniably one of the great comics. And over the years, he has shown a willingness to speak out against hyper PC culture and the deleterious effect that it has on comedy. He spoke out most explicitly in an interview with The New Yorker recently, where he said that the extreme left, in his words, is killing comedy. And as far as I can remember, it was the first time that he had directly called out the left. Now, not exactly an act of bravery. He's a 70-year-old comedian who's worth over $1 billion. So he's not putting much on the line by talking about these issues, but many of us appreciated it all the same. That is until the interview he just did with fellow comedian Tom Papa this week, where he backtracked on all of it.
I did an interview. So there were two things that I have to say I regret saying and that I have to take back. And I said that the extreme left has suppressed the art of comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I did say that.
Yeah.
That's not true. It's not true.
No?
No. Again, you want to go back? Let's go back to our solid liquid analogy.
Okay.
And the other thing that I have said about this, if you're Lindsey Vonn, if you're a champion skier, you can put the gates anywhere you want on the mountain. She's going to make the gate.
Right.
That's comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the culture is, we make the gate.
Mm-hmm.
You don't make the gate, you're out of the game. The game is, where is the gate? How do I make the gate and get down the hill in the way I want to? So does culture change? And are there things I used to say that I can't say, that everybody's always moving? Yeah, but that's the biggest, easiest target. You know, you can't say certain words,
Right.
you know, whatever they are, versus about groups. So what? So these larger cultural themes of this is not considered acceptable, this is not acceptable.
Yeah.
So I don't think as I said, the extreme left has done anything to inhibit the art of comedy.
Right.
I'm taking that back now officially.
Gotcha.
They have not.
Right.
Do you like it? Maybe, maybe not. It's not my business to like or not like where the culture is at.
Yeah.
It's my business to make the gate.
Wow, what a profile and courage. An inspiration for the ages is Jerry Seinfeld. Now, needless to say, this is a cowardly retreat, all the more cowardly because of how unnecessary it was. People talked about his original comments condemning the extreme left.
So before Matt Walsh weighs in, I gotta say, it seems to me that Jerry Seinfeld has basically been brainwashed in the interim since you originally made his statement till today. And to his point where he says that it's his job to make the gate, there shouldn't be any gates on comedy. That's the one thing that, like I said before, comedy can go into all aspects of life and make fun of all people pretty much for any reason because it's comedy. They're trying to be funny, and the funniest things will rise to the top, and the failures, the bad takes will be silenced, be shunned. And this is where we can draw the distinction between Jerry Seinfeld and George Carlin, who both in their, latter years were given an opportunity to either conform or give no Fs. And so George Carlin, he went one way, which is free speech, honesty, integrity, in my opinion, like him or not. And Jerry Seinfeld has basically been brainwashed by the cult, beaten down. And I don't know, I can't believe that it's for money. I think it's probably just because of the people that are around him. It's definitely not a measure of his success. The Pop-Tart movie, although somewhat interesting and funny, Nothing compared to early years Jerry Seinfeld. Let's just hear what Matt Walsh has to say about it.
Wow, what a profile and courage. An inspiration for the ages is Jerry Seinfeld. Now, needless to say, this is a cowardly retreat. All the more cowardly because of how unnecessary it was. People talked about his original comments condemning the extreme left for about half a day and then moved on. At this point, he may as well have said it 600 years ago. He didn't need to issue any clarification, much less a full retraction and apology, but he was obviously quite disturbed by the pushback, however mild and fleeting it may have been. Jerry Seinfeld never had much edge to begin with, but whatever edge he may have had at one point, he has now lost, obviously. And we've seen this devolution, and it's been quite sad and tragic. We've seen it with nearly all of the greatest and most influential comedians and entertainers and cultural figures of his generation, the ones who are still alive. They've pretty much all retreated and gotten duller and blander with age. Howard Stern is another prime example. And we've talked about that many times. People often lament that George Carlin, who's obviously, he would be older, he's a generation above Seinfeld, but people often lament that George Carlin isn't around anymore to lampoon the woke insanity. What they don't understand is that if he was around, he would almost certainly be in the Howard Stern and Jerry Seinfeld camp. I mean, you should be thanking God. If you like George Carlin stuff, you should be thanking God he's not around. Okay, because he would be doing stand-up sets about how Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. He'd be doing a hilarious rant about why it's lame to disrespect a person's preferred pronouns. That would totally be what he would be doing.
And this is where Matt Walsh and I are going to disagree. George Carlin was the one that, in the face of being canceled for saying the F word or being too vulgar or this or that, went on and made a complete joke out of the diversity of the F word specifically, right? And I'm sure you are all aware of that joke. If you're not, look it up. And, you know, so George Carlin, he was pretty aware of the political situation, the cultural situation, and he seemed like he always wanted to go against the grain. But, you know, I could be wrong. I don't think that I am, but I do believe that I disagree with Matt Walsh here on his stance of George Carlin. I don't think George Carlin would be woke right now. I think if he was a Democrat, then he would be MAGA, America First now. But that is obviously just a speculation, and unfortunately, he's not here to prove me right or wrong. So, but I am curious if you're familiar with George Carlin. Where do you believe he would stand today in the face of this DEI society and how weak and soft it seems to be? Because I think that he would have agreed with Jerry Seinfeld in his original statements that the woke culture is ruining comedy. And I think that George Carlin is actually one that would have maybe disagreed with Jerry Seinfeld with that, because he would have just maintained his status quo and had a whole new avenue of people to make fun of, which to me was hilarious. But let's continue here and finish up what Matt Walsh has to say.
In the trajectory for nearly all of these people, even Bill Burr has gotten distinctly more PC with age, like a lot more. Now, you would think it would go the opposite way. As you get older and richer, you'd give less of a damn what anyone says or thinks. But in most cases, the combination of age and wealth has a neutering effect. And these guys are comfortable with their place in life. They're fat and happy. The last thing they want to do is rock the boat, which is probably why it'd be best if most comedians just retired at 50, so we don't have to see them like this. Like, it's just sad and pathetic and painful to witness. And case in point, Seinfeld now says that the job of a comedian is to make the gate. I mean, I can't think of a worse, a more wrong-headed way of explaining what a comedian's supposed to do. And this is coming from a legendary comedian. But what he says is that the culture sets out the boundaries, draws the course, and a comedian is supposed to operate within those boundaries, supposed to navigate the course, follow the guideposts, stay on the path that the culture has created for you, use the words they tell you to use, avoid the language they tell you to avoid, talk about this subject, not that one. These things are forbidden, avoid those. This is comedy, according to the brave and bold Jerry Seinfeld. Comedy is following the rules, making the gate, staying in the lane, driving the speed limit, to mix metaphors. After doing stand-up comedy for like 50 years, this is Seinfeld's great insight. Half a century in the business, and he now sounds like a court jester performing a set for Kim Jong-un in North Korea. Isn't it hilarious? Isn't it so funny to follow the rules exactly and never offend your audience under any circumstances? Isn't that cool, kids? This is what the cool people do. That's true comedy. Now, the reality, of course, is the opposite. The primary job of a comedian, the most essential role of comedy in any society, is not to make the gate and follow the course, but to question why the gate is there and not over there. Why does the course go this way but not that way? You can't find the humor and absurdity in the boundaries if you're not willing to push them. That doesn't mean that comedy always has to be intentionally outrageous or intentionally offensive just for the sake of it, but it does have to be aware of the ridiculous aspects of the culture, the rules that don't make any sense, and it has to be willing to lampoon those rules, which will always risk upsetting the people who put the rules in place. This is why the left can't do comedy anymore. It's why comedians like Bill Burr have gotten much less funny as they've become more liberal.
And I do agree with Matt Walsh there that Bill Burr has gotten worse over the years, and he's married to a completely woke woman. And, you know, I believe a lot of that influence in his comedy comes from his home life and his influence with the DEI woke standard, right? And so, you know, I agree with Matt Walsh pretty much generally here, except for his take on George Carlin, like I already mentioned. And to Jerry Seinfeld's point there about making the gate, I think it's the job of the comedians to push the limits of the gate, right? Society is going to try to tell you what's acceptable and what's not. And of course, over the past 2 decades, it seems like this you know, woke LGBTQ plus type community has been the vocal minority, and thus society and culture has gone that direction because the majority of the people basically wave a "don't tread on me" flag, but they fail to toe the line, and that's something that we all need to get better at. You can't just draw the line and say, hey, there's the line, don't cross it. You have to draw the line and you have to toe the line, and you have to maintain that line barrier does not get crossed. Jerry Seinfeld is wrong. He should not have apologized. And to Matt Walsh's point, everybody forgot about his statements after a couple days. Like, to me, I can't remember if that was last year or 2 years ago or just a couple months ago when he said that the left is ruining comedy. Pretty much people either agreed with it, disagreed with it, and then moved on, especially in today's day and age where news is coming at you 1,000 miles per hour, and pretty much yesterday's news, last week's news is gone and forgotten very easily, right? And so, as a huge Seinfeld fan, I am extremely disappointed that he was dwelling on those past statements and that he went and corrected himself. Because, like I said in the beginning, Jerry Seinfeld has generally stood aside. He's been unpolitical when it comes to his potential political influence. And in this one, it seems pretty obvious to me where he stands now. And, you know, unfortunately, I got to say, Jerry Seinfeld is probably going to go vote for Kamala Harris. If he votes, that would be the person that he votes for. And that's disappointing to me. He said enough to where he's ruined all of his years of work in staying out of the political sphere to now everyone, in my opinion, understands where he stands. And, you know, it's kind of obvious if you know his circle. He's friends with Larry David. Larry David is super woke. He hates MAGA. He hates Donald Trump, all that type of stuff. But nevertheless, I've always been able to put that stuff aside and laugh at Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is Larry David's show. It's kind of a R-rated version of Seinfeld, essentially starring himself. Unfortunately, as the woke DEI culture, this leftist agenda creeps into the funny things that we watch, everything is going in a downhill direction as far as cutting edge comedy that I can agree with, that I can enjoy watching. I don't know. There's very few comedians out there that are of that George Carlin type, and so I don't know. If there's any of them out there that you know of, make sure you comment them, put them in the comments, because like I said, I'm a huge fan of comedy and comedians and stand-up. And, Dave Chappelle is one of them that I really appreciated, over the last 5 years or so with his most recent comedy shows. Although I will admit, I haven't seen his most recent one just because it's a Netflix thing, and I believe it's a Netflix thing, and I don't have Netflix. But next time I sign up for it, when Stranger Things comes back around, I'll be certainly getting caught up on all of the things that I've missed as far as stand-up. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you agreed with this, if you're America First, you are certainly in the right place. So make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. And also, come visit me on Saturdays. I love engaging in conversation with the America First community. Even if you want to question me, if you think I'm a fraud or something, come talk to me and let's have the debate. I welcome it. I'm open to it. And other than that, check out the store and share this video. That's what helps out the most. And I'll see you guys in the next video.